For 4,000 years, one woman has been called a demon, a baby killer, a seductress, a warning to every wife about what happens when you don't obey. Her name is Lilith, and almost everything you've heard about her comes from the people she said no to. So, what if we've had this backwards the entire time? What if the monster part of the story was never about her, and was actually about them and what they couldn't forgive? Today, we're going back to her very first appearance, 4,000 years ago, and tracing exactly how a woman who simply refused to submit became one of history's most feared names. By the end of this, I think you'll see her completely differently. Let's get into it. To find Lilith, we have to go back further than the Bible, back to ancient Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, where people spoke of spirits called Lilitu. These weren't one single character. Think of Lilitu less like a name and more like a category, the way we'd say ghost or demon today. They were wind spirits, night wanderers, beings blamed for things ancient people couldn't otherwise explain. Sudden infant death, infertility, nightmares. They lived on the edges of things. The desert, the ruins, the places outside the safety of the city walls. This is important because it sets up everything that comes later. Lilith, from her very first appearance, was never about being evil for evil's sake. She represented the unexplainable, the dangerous unknown that lived just outside the firelight. Centuries later, Jewish folklore gave this category of spirit an actual name and a story. And it's one of the boldest creation stories you've probably never heard. According to a text called The Alphabet of Ben Sira, written somewhere between the 8th and 10th century, Lilith wasn't Eve. She was Adam's first wife, and she wasn't made from his rib. She was made from the same earth at the same time as an equal. Here's where it gets interesting. When Adam tried to assert dominance over her, specifically during sex, insisting she lie beneath him, Lilith said no. She refused. She spoke the secret name of God, grew wings, and flew away to the Red Sea, choosing exile over submission. God sent 3 angels to drag her back. She still said no. So they cursed her. 100 of her children would die every single day. And in a dark twist of retaliation, legend says she began threatening human infants in revenge, which is exactly the kind of detail that turns a woman with agency into a monster in folklore. Later, in Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, she gets elevated even further. She becomes a cosmic figure, the dark consort of a demon named Samael, a kind of shadow twin to the divine feminine presence in Judaism, the Shekinah. Notice the pattern here. Every single version of this story is about a woman who refused to be controlled and got punished for it in the retelling. So how did a Mesopotamian wind demon become a tattoo, a magazine title, and a therapy buzzword? In the 1800s, European artists got obsessed with her. Painters like Rossetti painted her as this hypnotic, dangerous seductress, all flowing hair and knowing eyes. She became Victorian shorthand for a woman who doesn't know her place. But here's the turn. In the 1970s, feminist writers took the story back. Lilith magazine, launched in 1976, named specifically after her. So, was Lilith ever really the villain, or was she just the first person in recorded history brave enough to say no and leave? Every version of her story that calls her a monster was written by someone she refused to obey. Every version that calls her free was written by someone who finally understood why she left. Maybe that's the real reason she's lasted 4,000 years. Not because she's scary, but because almost everyone, at some point in their life, has been the person who said no, and got called the villain for it. If this kind of mythology meets psychology, deep dive is your thing. This is exactly what The Eclipse Within is built around. taking the stories we inherited and asking who they were really protecting and who they were really punishing. Subscribe if you want to keep doing this together. And down in the comments, I want to know, when was a time you said no and got made into the villain of someone else's story? Let's talk about it down there. I'll see you in the next one.